Good morning! It is Thursday! Ready to rumble! Alright, hopefully I don't get kicked off the YouTubes for that. Who knows, I don't have that many followers yet, so we should be good. I've always been a fan of Thursdays. I've always thought Thursdays were kind of the most underrated days of the week. I've just always been a fan. I really like Thursdays. But anyways, got my Nitro Cold Brew here today. It is no longer foamy because I'm drinking it and it's been sitting a little bit. Oops. But it is good. That is from Rise and Roll, but it is Hubbard and Craven's Cold Brew. Nitro Cold Brew. Pretty good. What's up? So I wanted to talk about the nature of truth and facts today. What it means to say something is true, what it means to say something that is say something's a fact. I think we have this kind of notion that these two things are absolute. So when we say something is true or when we say something is a fact, it's something that is 100% absolute. And I want to talk about kind of truth and facts being more of this fluid concept, kind of on a spectrum, and how it kind of ties into truth and facts are a little bit more kind of probability oriented. So the only thing that can come close to an absolute truth would be the fundamental laws of physics of the universe. So say the law of gravity, Newton's laws, the laws of thermodynamics. Now, and we call these laws because they are probably the closest things we have to absolute truths or absolute facts. And that is because so let's just take the law of gravity. If the law of gravity turns out to be false, say in 100 years we find that the law of gravity was completely wrong. Now, if that turns out to be true, then kind of the nature of the world, or kind of our understanding of the physics of the world, would essentially completely collapse. Like, it makes so much coherent sense. The law of gravity makes so much coherent sense that the likelihood that it is false is pretty close to zero, and that's pretty much the closest thing we have to an absolute truth. So when we're talking about truth and facts and more everyday life, or things that aren't kind of the fundamental laws of physics, we have to kind of think of them on kind of this fluid continuum of kind of being more or less right or more or less wrong. So an easy example is the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. What we know about the situation's still new, and what we know about the virus and what we know kind of about the pandemic in general, in 6 months, some of the facts that we're calling facts now might turn out to be wrong. But this is where kind of the continuum of truth, or this kind of fluid concept, comes into play. So when the pandemic just started, experts predicted there'd be like 2 million deaths in the US, or basically kind of the catastrophe would be much higher than what we're currently seeing. So it turns out that kind of their predictions and their models were a little bit wrong. But that is because truth and facts are always being updated. And whatever the experts predicted at the beginning, it is still probably wise to kind of go with their opinion, because they're in contact with the most information. They're in contact with kind of all the statistics, and at the time they were still more right than the other end of the spectrum, where people think it was a giant conspiracy, that it's no more dangerous than the flu, or that the flu still kills many more people and therefore the flu is dangerous. Now, those people in that kind of line of reasoning and thinking is nowhere kind of near the truth. So knowing that truth and facts are more of this fluid concept, the experts are more right in this instance because they're closer to the truth. Now, and 6 months from now, they might be wrong again, but they're still less wrong than the people that think this is a conspiracy and that it's basically a bunch of shit. So when we talk about truth and we're talking about facts and kind of dialogue with everyday dialogue, this is something that we have to kind of understand, and that when we're making predictions or when we're kind of making assertions of truth, we have to know that they can be proven to be wrong in the future and that they are always being updated, but that doesn't mean that you were essentially completely wrong. So another good example I like is the lottery. I could tell you, if you told me today, if you came to me and you said, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket, and I'm going to be like, you're not going to win the lottery. And I'm willing to say that's a fact. Now, it's not a 100% fact because there's still a chance that you could win the lottery, but we know the odds of you winning the lottery are so low, so close to zero, that I'm willing to say it's a fact that you are not going to win the lottery. And so this is how we have to think of facts, and this is how we have to think of truth. And this is kind of a rationality and reasoning mindset that is going to help you make better predictions, make better judgments in the future. And we're always adjusting and recalibrating kind of our truth propositions, or what we think to be true or what we know to be true about the universe and in our daily lives. And having this more kind of skeptical or rational mindset can help us make better future judgments and predictions, because we're always kind of recalibrating and reevaluating our sense of truth and facts about the world. And I think that's the more optimal mindset, because you're kind of more in touch with the nature of reality and more in touch with kind of the nature of truth about our reality. Whereas if somebody on the opposite end of the spectrum that doesn't like to recalibrate or re-update their notion of truth, or what are the facts as we know them, that just kind of goes off kind of pure motivated kind of emotional reasoning, where they're just kind of looking to find ideas that fit their narrative. And if you're not kind of recalibrating what you think is true or what is true, then you're probably more likely to make kind of bad judgments and bad decisions and bad predictions, because you're kind of going off like low probability truth. So to kind of bring this full circle, nothing, and this is like the scientific process is huge in this, and it's one of the things I just don't understand at all when people criticize science for being wrong. That is the whole point of science. The whole point of science is to continually try to prove yourself wrong so you can get closer to the truth as you know it. So it just boggles my mind when people say, oh, you can't rely on science because science has proven to be wrong. Well, that's 100% true, but sticking to the scientific process is going to make you much more likely to be right about something than somebody that doesn't. Because, again, they have a method and process of trying to get closer to the truth by proving themselves wrong and constantly re-updating what they know to be true. And they're the closest in contact with all the information present. So, again, to bring this full circle, truth and facts are not absolute, and there's something that are always kind of being readjusted and recalibrated when newer sets of facts come in. So when you say something is true, or when you say something is a fact, and you're kind of making decisions, everything is kind of probability. You're kind of weighing the odds. Is something more likely to be true, or something more likely to be false? And how much information are you gathering about that? And are you willing to constantly kind of re-update your beliefs, re-update what you know to be truth, and kind of recalibrate your sense of the facts when newer facts come in? So, again, going back to the example of the pandemic, it's so stupid to think that it's a conspiracy and to think it's all a bunch of shit and that we should just go full bore right into reopening the economy. So I guess the entire point of this is to kind of be a little bit more skeptical and be open to new ideas, new information coming in, and being open to changing your mind to newer sets of facts, and knowing that you can never be 100% right about something. And the closest thing we have to absolute truths are the fundamental laws of physics. So basically, don't argue with someone if somebody is just operating on this end of the continuum or spectrum of just low probability truth. So key points: the only absolute truths, or the closest we have to them, are the fundamental laws of physics, of the universe, and truth and facts are more fluid than we might have imagined, and they're kind of operating on this continuum of kind of low probability to high probability. Are you more or less likely to be right or wrong? And that's kind of the information you should weigh when making judgments, decisions, and kind of asserting something to be true or not. I hope this makes sense, and I hope you kind of get something out of this and that you can kind of apply to thinking about cool ideas.